At Fulfillment Therapy, we believe in strengthening relationships whenever possible. But when a marriage is ending or feels like it might, how that transition unfolds can shape your future peace and healing. In today's episode, Joe Dillon, co founder of Equitable Mediation Services, shares how couples can navigate divorce with dignity and calm, reducing the pain and protecting what matters most. Stay tuned. Therapy. Today we have a special guest here with us, Joe Dillon. He's the co-founder of Equitable Mediation Services, where for over 17 years he's helped couples navigate divorce with dignity and financial wisdom. Combining his MBA in finance with specialized training from Harvard, MIT, and Northwestern, Joe pioneered virtual mediation back in 2011, achieving a remarkable 98% success rate. As a child of divorce himself, he's made it a mission to show that divorce doesn't have to be destructive, but can actually become a pathway to peace, growth, and new beginnings. So thank you, Joe, so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me, Kendra.
So tell me a little bit more side of your bio about why this is impactful, why this is your life work. Like we talked about, you're a child of divorce yourself. Do you like what you do, and how'd you get here?
A little bit more about my background. So my parents litigated their divorce when I was a teenager. And it was the classic, like everyone says, it's not going to happen to us. It's not going to go that way. And they did the whole thing. They dragged it through court. I sat in the back of the courtroom. They fought so much that the last time I saw my father was in a courtroom in 1985, I guess it was. And he was in the hall and he didn't even recognize me because he had moved out a few years prior. And that was the last interaction I had with him. So no co-parenting, no contact. And I may have gotten a letter or two from him in the subsequent years. And then finally in 2019, I got a letter saying he died. That was the only contact I had. So the litigated divorce absolutely destroyed the family. I'm an only child. So that was my impetus when I got into mediation. And I can actually serve as a warning to couples and tell them, if you don't think this is going to happen to you, guess again. The system is set up to be adversarial. It's going to pit you against each other. You're going to forget your kids' needs. They are going to get caught in the crossfire squarely in the middle. And then you're off to the races and bankruptcy. When I look back at what I do, I think about it not as so much as, oh, at first I was like, oh, this is terrible. I'm ending marriages. And my partner, my wife, Cheryl, said, no, you have to reframe that. She's a coach, of course. And she said, you need to reframe that. It's not that you're ending their marriages. They chose that. You're helping them avoid the destruction and you're keeping them together as families moving forward. And that mind shift really helped. So when I think about people now, I think about the help that I'm giving them to move through their divorce peacefully so that they can be good co-parents, so that they can remain in each other's lives. And hopefully their kids will see the adults modeling good conflict resolution behavior. And from there also have healthier relationships and healthier conflicts moving forward. So it's a pretty interesting, on the surface, it seems pretty basic. Oh, you're helping people divorce. Okay. But I really do look at it a lot deeper than that, that I'm helping generations beyond this one really avoid conflict and trauma and all the baggage that I've had to carry and I've worked hard to work through and resolve.
This is interesting because it's important and it's needed for sure. And a lot of my listeners might be thinking, like, why aren't we talking about how to keep the marriage together? Well, in some cases, and I'm sure you'll speak to that, reconciliation is not what you're going for one reason or another. And I
Yeah.
know all know somebody, whether it's us personally or a loved one, that this episode could really help if we learn some of these things that you can help us with. I'm
Yeah.
thinking about my personal experience as well. Like I had a dad pass away, but then I also had a stepdad for 12 years. So my first stepdad. And that was such a toxic experience that we were all pleading with my mom to get divorced. And she eventually did. And in this case, it was exactly what we all prayed
Yeah.
for, we
Yeah.
needed. And it was a good thing, except she didn't have somebody to help her out. So essentially in the end, she just, okay, take everything, I'll just walk away peacefully, let's just be done with this. And so
Mhm.
in a lot of these instances, it's very devastating for one or both or the entire family. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what you do to make it more positive?
Certainly. That's a great point. When we have clients who come to us, mediation is a voluntary process.
Mhm.
And we do ask, have you gone to therapy? Have you gone to counseling? Have you tried to work this out? Because we're not pro divorce, we're anti conflict. And saying that to clients, I think helps them understand that we're not like, great, you're getting a divorce. We're here to say, if you, as two mature, intelligent adults, have made this decision and you feel there's nothing you can do to move forward together, then we want to help you move forward separately, but peacefully and cost effectively. When we think about that, when I look back at clients and I talk to them, I always say to them, unlike an attorney who advocates for only one of you, I advocate for both of you and your children when required. And saying that out loud to them makes them understand that I'm not here to pick sides. I'm not here to see one person walk away with everything and the other person to walk away with nothing. I try to bring some levity and a little bit of light humor to sometimes to these proceedings so that folks can humanize it. They can see that I'm a person, they're a person, and this isn't happening to them. It's simply happening. And when we talk about it that way, and I'll say to them, I'm going to tell you two right now, my goal in this process is for both of you to be slightly annoyed with me at the end when it's over. And they look at me funny and they laugh. Yes, because if I've upset both of you a little bit, it means I've pushed back on you. I made you give something. You didn't get everything you wanted. And they get it. Like it's a light bulb moment. They laugh now. Okay. And then when we're done, I got to circle back to that and say, so how we feeling? And they're like, in session 3, I was really not liking you. Oh, five, you turned it around in session 4. And that really goes to my role is to help people walk away roughly on par with each other. It doesn't do anyone any good, especially when children are involved. And I've seen these cases in my own friends and family where you've got a child, one parent lives in an apartment down by the railroad tracks, and the other one lives in a 5-bedroom, 3.5 bath house on the coast and the beach. And now you're a kid and it's parenting time. Where are you going to want to go? It's not that you don't love the one parent. It's just you don't want to live next to a railroad track. And that's part of what we try to emphasize saying, look, when children are involved, they need a seamless transition between environments. They need to feel both places or spaces are safe, that both parents have the resources to support them. So one of you walking away with everything or the other one walking away with nothing, that doesn't help that happen. That's really our main message. When we talk about putting kids first, it's not just a tagline. It's not just, oh, the best interest of the children. If you really genuinely are putting your best interest of the kids first, a lot of the other stuff just falls away. And we always can circle back to that, right? You never get a parent who says, I want to be a bad parent. So admittedly, that's a little bit of a card I can play saying, if your son or your daughter was in the room right now and listening to this conversation, what do you think they would say? Or what do you think they would think of you right now? And that really does make a lot of headway and does break through a lot of conflict when we get to those places of resolution.
I appreciate the breakdown of that. And to be honest, I don't know a lot about this because even though my mom has been through a divorce and I have plenty of loved ones that have, I personally haven't gone through it. So
Mhm.
I don't know the ins and outs, and I'm glad that you're breaking it down for us. You said that a mediator is advocating for both parties, which I think is
Right.
great. Now, do you get into any of the legal parts of it, or do you work with the courts, or how does this work?
That's a great question. It's a common misconception. First of all, this has probably been a few minds of your listeners, but you don't need a lawyer to get a divorce in the United States. We've been trained by the lawyers, we've been trained by television to say, I have to lawyer up, I have to get a lawyer, I have to get a lawyer. There is no law anywhere, as far as I know. I'm not a lawyer, by the way. I'm a mediator, I'm not a lawyer. So you don't need to have a lawyer to get a divorce. You can certainly go through the whole process with a mediator through the courts, and I'll talk a little bit about that. So when we talk about an actual mediator's role, one of the misconceptions people have is they think mediators help with parenting because many court systems have what we call parenting coordinators. That's just a broad name for it. Those folks are officers of the court who help people with custody issues. So from that, many people think mediators don't handle child support, alimony, property division. We absolutely do. We draft paperwork. We write up all the agreements. We help you fill out forms. We do a lot of that work. Now, we happen to practice in multiple states. So it would be very difficult for us to keep up on all the court and filing and requirements across multiple states. So instead, we choose to partner with folks within those states. We're familiar with how divorce works in the 6 states we practice in, but for our own sanity, because the court's forms and the processes are always changing, we defer to localized professionals who know how to work through the system because it varies from state to state. Sometimes it varies from county to county or even town to town. And you can really lose your purpose doing that. Our process is such that we say, use a football analogy, we take you to the goal line and we leave the ball right at the goal line. It's just now the professional's job to help you cross that. And that's really the administrative filing of divorce. So we help with everything up until you enter the actual court system. Whereas we have colleagues that we seamlessly transition and smoothly hand you over so that it's a seamless end-to-end process rather than, okay, you're done mediation, good luck to you, and go find your way. So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, is it almost, sorry if this is not the analogy you would want, but you're like the realtor, and then the only one they deal with at the end is like the lending company or the title company. Like everything is done. It's just you take care of everything, but at the very end, there's like the paperwork filing.
Right. Yeah, exactly right. It's all just because as anyone, even if you've gotten, I don't know, a permit to do a renovation on your kitchen, anyone who knows when you're interfacing with the government, it is nothing but forms and paperwork. So, yeah, when you think about it, you came into that office with your plans, your cabinets picked out, all your measurements, right? You just need somebody to go, yep, this looks good and stamp and here, and here's your permit and pay us your fee. That's a good analogy as well.
So tell us a little bit about it because I am thinking about all of my clients right now that I'm helping my couples and also some individuals that are going through horrific divorces. And my heart just goes out to them because
Yeah.
there's so many parts of it that are just terrible. For example, a lot of them are very traumatized. There's been emotional abuse, there's been all of these things, and they have to go to court and be in
Right.
front of this person and be calm and
Yeah.
collected this amazing person, and I'm like, "How is this even gonna work? How are they going to successfully navigate this with this terrible person that's
Right.
fighting them just for the sake of fighting with them?" And for people listening, what can they do if they feel like they don't have a lot of hope?
That's pretty common in mediation. Most of the clients we get are, I wouldn't say they're amicable to the point where they can work together. They might not be friends. However, they are both willing to set aside their differences. Now, if you get into a situation where there is this dynamic, and it's very common, of course, because when we think about divorce, this is, I think, an important point. When people think about divorce, they think about, oh, you're getting divorced. That's a legal proceeding. Yes, that's absolutely true. You are severing the marital contract. However, it's also a negotiation, right? When we think about, we have to say to ourselves, I'll get, you'll get that, et cetera. It's also a very emotionally charged dynamic. And when we think about what my role is, technically, yes, I am a divorce mediator. But what I really am is a negotiation professional. That's really what I am. That's where my training, my background, my degrees, those kinds of things come into play. It just so happens that I apply it to divorce in couples. When we think about people in the situation, as you mentioned, that's where coaching comes in and that's where therapy comes in because it's how you react to the person. My experience, and this is a perfect analogy, when you think about a fire needs oxygen to burn. When you remove the oxygen from the fire goes out. We do get clients every so often who do, as we say, sneak in because they appear to be on the surface. Oh, sure, cooperative, et cetera, but they may be narcissistic, or once they get into the process, then the gloves come off, so to speak. And I found over time that the best way to manage difficult clients like that is to take the air out of the room, is to just simply move on, move forward, ignore the jabs, ignore the barbs, stay on the path and stay true. So anyone who's listening, who's encountering that kind of situation, it's to disengage, it's to detach, it's to ask yourself, is this going to really matter in 2 or 3 years? What damage is it causing me to fight this fight? If you really answer that question, you'll find my experience is about 9 times out of 10, you'll say to yourself, you know what? This seems terrible in the moment. This seems life altering and life ending. However, this too shall pass. And at one point in the future, with some time and some distance and some work, I will be back on my feet, happy, healthy, and moving forward. We really can get enmeshed in the conflict. And it's very easy to do that because, again, using the fire analogy, the flames engulf us. However, when you really step back and you step out and you think about how do I move forward, to me, that is priceless. Because, for example, I watched my mom drag the divorce on for years and years. And then she never dated, never got remarried, never had any friends, never went anywhere. She was 45. I think to myself, I'm older than 45 and I my life ended at 45. That's not what I want for myself. And so that's really what I think about is how do you move forward? How do you disengage? How do you simply move through the process and just begin the necessary rebuilding that inevitably has to come?
That breaks it down. I love how you shared that you're a negotiation professional because that kind of helps conceptualize like what that would look like.
Hmm.
Say for listeners that are like, I just feel in my heart of hearts, this relationship is not going to work out. We've tried, we've done counseling, we've done all these things. If not going to a place that's beneficial for us, for our children, say they're to that point, they've decided to separate, but they're hesitant to get right into those huge lawyer fees. They want to try mediation, but they're not sure if that's ultimately going to be best for their kids or maybe any party. And then maybe at the same time, it'll be worse off. So then they'll have to go to an attorney anyway. What would you say as they're trying to figure out what to do? Any advice on those next steps when they're ready to end the thing?
Yeah, certainly. So if they've made the decision, I always say, try mediation first. Mediation is not binding until the two of you make it. And people are often surprised that even in mediation, we can make a lot of progress. So one thing that we're very proud of is our case resolution rate. When you think about mediation, typically mediation results in about 70% of mediated cases will resolve. For us, 98% of them resolve. So I say to clients, if I told you you had a 98% chance of winning the lottery, would you buy a ticket? If you say no, then I would look at you and I would say, you're full of crap. And not that winning the lottery is equivalent to getting a divorce, but the analogy holds, right? What you're thinking about percentages. Even if you don't successfully mediate the entire divorce, think about all the money you've saved because you've mediated child support, parenting, alimony. You've done a lot of the heavy lifting. So now you're in effect greatly reducing any legal fees that you'll have because it's now becomes a limited set of issues. You're not starting from scratch. If you've already agreed your parenting plan, just take it. I'll write it up. You bring it into the next part of the process. That's perfectly fine. It never hurts to mediate. You always have that shot to get a lawyer later. Once you get a lawyer first, the horse has left the barn. People very rarely will see. We have an intake form when someone's scheduling a meeting with me. And whenever we see someone check where we're in the middle of a litigated divorce and they want to come back to mediation, I can't think of a single client in 18 years that we've gotten that has been in that status and then has put the brakes on it and come into mediation. It just became so adversarial. So I say mediate first. What have you got to lose? It's a good place to have a conversation. You'd be surprised. People start thinking, I can't do that. We don't get along. A great mediator is going to be able to work with those personality types, get you both on the same page, help you start reaching agreements. And that's where the magic happens. So that's where I say, Kendra, it's like you say to folks, look at you agreeing. We've got the parenting plan done. Good work. I'm almost like a cheerleader as well. Oh, and they look at each other and they look at you and they go, man, this is the best conversation we've had in 15 years. I'm like, good. Let's keep this momentum going. Let's talk about child support now. And they get a little confidence because they've been in such a dysfunction for so long that it feels refreshing to have a conversation that's productive, and that momentum begets momentum. And that's how we keep people moving forward, by encouraging them, being positive, focusing on their achievements. If we hit a wall, we circle around, we come back, we go around. And that's how we get people there, like literally 98% of the time.
That's amazing. So then what about for those clients that are, again, they decided to end it and they want to move forward? In your experience, because you've worked with so many different types of people that have attorneys, have mediators, what do you wish they knew about if they go that route of getting an attorney?
Okay. Couple of things. Number one is that, and again, this is no disrespect to attorneys. It's simply the system by which we're dealt. Attorneys' jobs are to advocate for their client, which is wonderful if you're at the big store and this box falls on your head and you break your neck and you need someone to fight for you to get your medical bills paid. Of course, you want the fierce advocate to go after faceless corporation. But you have to ask yourself, the faceless corporation in this case happens to be a person that at some point in your past, you stood in front of friends, family, or a justice of the peace, or whatever you did and professed your love for this individual. You had some feelings for this person. You had some modicum of respect for this person, and you wanted to build a life together. Now, when you've hired this attorney, their job is to burn them to the ground. That is their job, right? By definition, a good attorney is going to say, you are my client and I'm going to give you everything. What do you think the other side is going to do? They're going to do the exact same thing. So your spouse now has an attorney that says, screw them. We're going to get you everything. So you can now start seeing how this becomes a zero-sum game. This is all back and forth at hourly rates, by the way. There is no incentive. Think this through. If attorneys are billing hourly, what incentive do they have to settle a case? I ask listeners to really ponder that. They get paid the longer the conflict goes on, right? And now, if I'm an attorney and if I'm getting paid and I'm getting paid hourly, of course I want to continue to make money out. This is my job. It's my livelihood. So of course I'm going to write another letter or ask for another deposition or interrogatory or go to court and file some motion. Of course that's what I'm going to do. And that process has no end in sight. So in addition to the financial devastation, you've now got the emotional devastation because this is dragging on forever. The second thing I think is very important to understand is that not that I would ever do this to any of your lovely listeners, but I would encourage them, just go on Google in whatever state you live in, just type in something like child support statutes and see what comes up for whatever state you live in. I will guarantee you after 5 minutes of reading that, you will probably pass out because you just won't understand what it says. It's all gobbledygook. It's all words. And at the end of the day, really what it boils down to is it's all about negotiation. It's all about what the parties deem to be fair and equitable. Very few, for example, property division. I happen to live in California. California is what we call a community property state. It says the parties can agree to anything they feel is fair and equitable. And if they can't, they'll come to 50-50. So by definition, the first thing the state says is you go figure it out. So great. That sounds empowering. That's what mediation does. And if you can't, we'll go to 50-50. Why do you need a lawyer to tell you you're going to get half, right? Why? What are they going to carve out that extra dollar or two? Maybe, I don't know. It's going to cost you $100,000 to do that. Is it worth it? No, probably not. So what you really start taking away from this is that the courts don't want you in there. You're adults. Go figure it out. You got into this. You need to get out of it. And that a lot of people miss that. They think I'm going to get an attorney. They're going to get me what I'm entitled to. If you go do that search, I promise you, you look at statutes. Nowhere on page 119 does it say you are entitled to the following. It's all very open to interpretation. So you're setting yourself up for financial bankruptcy, emotional bankruptcy, to only get a result, which, by the way, you are completely empowered to come up with on your own with the help of a mediator. Why not just start here and save all yourself, all that trauma, all that time, all that money, and just get what it is that the two of you want? Because if you don't, guess what happens? You go to court, you can't agree. The judge is going to dictate a settlement. And in my experience, Nobody's ever happy with that.
I really appreciate you sharing this statistics as well, that 98% resolve. Is that how you mentioned it?
Yeah.
60 straight. We never want to see families divided, but we want people supported through every life decision with compassion and clarity. If today's episode with Joe Dillon gave you hope or insight, explore our resources at fulfillmenttherapy.org, including Mend Your Marriage if you're working to heal your relationship, or Ignite Your Life if you're rediscovering yourself after major change. And if this episode encouraged you, please leave a review or share this with a friend who might need a reminder that peace is still possible even in those hard transitions. Stay tuned for part 2 coming up.